Welcome, everybody. I hope by now you have watched the webinar. Hopefully you joined us live, and if not, you've been able to watch the replay on creating your loophole-free parenting plan. And today I'm with Sabrina with Rising Beyond Community, and she is really our expert in creating these loophole-free parenting plans. And these are our top most common questions we get as we are helping people create their parenting plans. This is going to be rapid fire. We're going to try and get this done in as short amount of time as possible, but really wanted to get these questions answered for you. Hi, Sabrina.
Hi, it's good to be here.
Yeah, parenting plans are so important, and you've been doing this for a while, helping people create parenting plans, and we've really acquired a lot of questions. So, are you ready for this rapid
I'm
fire?
ready. Here we go.
All right. So, number one, can I restrict my ex from, and this is a lot of things, leaving the state with my kid, sending me a bunch of messages? How in a parenting plan can we restrict these behaviors?
I think this is a really big, nuanced question, and there's a lot that goes into it. I think the overall kind of tiny piece would be it depends, which is a hard thing. And this is, again, where we can kind of zoom things down individually, but more likely than not, if you want a restriction on your ex, you're going to have it on yourself. Now, if there's different reasons that, if he has a history of sending you a ton of messages, it might be easier to say, this is why I want to limit messages. But in general, what I found is if we put, for example, the father will not message the parent more than 5 times a day, usually the judges like to see that with both people. So that's a big thing that we have to consider is like, are you okay with these restrictions? Because even if you don't put it in your proposed plan, what can happen is the judge can kind of write the parents instead of the father. And so if we're suggesting these things, kind of taking that into account also as we build that plan.
Yeah, so anything you want to restrict them from, you will likely be restricted from as well.
Yep.
Okay, so number two, my child is a toddler. How do I make a plan that grows with my child so I don't have to go back to court?
I think this is a great one for planning ahead, and it doesn't seem to always happen very much. But what you can do is thinking of things that might come up in the future. And some of those can be easy, like tattoos. Some of those could be a lot less easy, like cell phones, and a lot can go into those things. So it's not just the child will get a cell phone at this age, but it's also which plan is the child going to be on, who's going to pay for that. And so if we can kind of detail different things, it may be that you would like to build a second schedule that has more of a like high school based schedule than a 2-year-old based schedule. So maybe it's like, well, I don't want now my kid to go more than 3 days without seeing me, but maybe by the time that kid is in junior high or high school, we're looking at a week on, week off to make it easier for the kid. And so those are kind of options that you can think through, we can talk over, you can think through if you're making your own plan. And so just a lot of it is anticipating what's coming in the future and where there might be hangups based on your individual situation.
Yeah, because there is such a different need between they're going to daycare, then they're going to elementary, and then they're going to middle and high. There's a lot of changes that could happen in that time. And it is, you learned yesterday or whenever you watched the webinar, you learned that it's super important to have your plan grow with your child. Holidays, and we didn't talk specifically about holidays in this, but I guarantee this is something that you talk a lot about when you're doing these one-on-one parenting plans with people. Is there a best plan for holidays?
I think the best plan for holidays is what works for you guys. So in some cases that may be every other holiday you switch just for the day. In some cases that may be one parent takes Christmas through New Year's and then the other parent has it the next year. And it is kind of individual, but I also think there's pieces of knowing that in most cases, unless your ex is really restricted from seeing your kid, that they're going to ask you to switch off holidays. That's kind of an expected thing. That's what co-parenting in general does. And so thinking through making sure also that you have everything really closed in there. So it's holiday is from this time to this time, and this is who's driving, and this is where the exchange time is. So it's not just like parents will exchange the kid and share time on Christmas, because I could see some exes bringing their kids at 12:59 on Christmas or 11:59 right before Christmas is over and being like, well, we did. I brought the kid. And while that may not fly with the judge, it may make you have to go back to court to deal with it.
Yeah. Yep. Details matter, everyone. Keeps us out of court. So how do we decide on extracurricular activities? And can I tell you that in a lot of the clients and community members, this is literally one of the most contested, contentious areas is extracurriculars. So how is that decided? What's important to put in the plan?
I think there's two pieces with extracurriculars. There's the time and getting your kid there and that kind of stuff. And then there's also the financial cost. And so both things need to be looked at, some sort of agreement of if the one parent signs up, either the other doesn't pay unless it's agreed upon. Those kind of things need to be in there. Otherwise, I could see a situation where dad takes kid for a ski week, puts them in a ton of ski lessons and stuff, and then says, well, you have to split lessons with me.
Yeah.
Or the kid is signed up for something that's 3 days a week on your parenting time when you have to be at work. So really looking at where could this impact your life and how do we set some parameters around making sure you're protected financially.
Yeah, because it's not just here's the fee for this private soccer league. It is then cost for team dinners, cost for uniform, cost for competitions, cost for this. I mean, there's so many different things involved. And then again, the time of that, and this does need to be spelled out in your plan, everyone. Like, how do you want to negotiate this with your ex-partner? No, you don't. So this needs to be written down, signed by you, signed by them, signed by the judge. All right. So how can we co-parent when I can't get my ex on board with anything?
This is where parallel parenting comes into play. Parallel parenting is the idea that what goes on at his house goes on at his house, what goes on at your house goes on at your house, and you aren't trying to communicate about, hey, I'd like bedtime to be 8:30. Hey, how much screen time do you think our kids should have? Those pieces, if you're trying to negotiate them later, just become a battlefield and a place where you can kind of get manipulated by your ex or feel like you're getting put into these boxes because you don't have the protections of them being in your parenting plan to parallel to separate. And it can be written out, and it can be more of just how we word things to say, mother has the choices here, father has the choices on his time, and not making you agree on any of those kind of things. You kind of do it different at different houses. This can be hard in terms of like, well, I know he's going to give my kid 6 hours of TV. And sometimes putting that in there isn't going to stop them from giving him 6 hours of TV anyways. Right. And so it's also like, what limits are we going to put in there that are enforceable, that we can like get evidence to back and that are like damaging to our child? Those are the ones we need to focus on over preference.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, there's the day-to-day decisions. And if you want to have say in their day-to-day decisions, just like you said before, guess what? They get say in what you do in your day-to-day decisions. And so, yes, unless it's like harming the child, they get to feed your child dino nuggets every meal, even if that doesn't fit with what you're hoping for your child. So those day-to-day things versus things that are joint decisions, like we've been talking about like extracurriculars, those are usually fairly joint decisions because there's so much involved. But those day-to-day decisions, we are not going to have a lot of say on what they do, so that they don't have a lot to say on what we do. Let's see. How do we handle discipline when we have different ideas on how to do it?
So to some extent, this is the parallel parenting piece. And I think there's a lot more kind of concerns and risks about safety when it comes to discipline than there is about TV time. So being able to kind of put in there often, you can put in no corporal punishment, which
Mhm.
no hurting someone to make them comply. That is something that some parents feel very strongly about. That's something that some parents don't feel strongly about. I have not really seen many cases where one parent is requesting that and it hasn't been granted. So that's one like easy safety piece we can put in there. And then it may be a discussion of these are things that we're doing and this is how we're going to do it. If you and your board can't, your ex can get on board with those, but usually you can't. And so then it's coming again to like safety and possibly putting something in there about communicating about discipline issues if they need to continue at the other parent's house, or if you hear about, say, your kid hit someone at school and you hear, you should probably have a way in there to let dad know unless there's a safety issue. And you would really like dad to let you know if he gets the call from the school. Otherwise, you likely will have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, and that instance is different than you playing secretary for your ex-partner, right? These are like big things happening. Your child got suspended. That is something that you would let them know. That has nothing to do with you being a secretary. Signing them up for school conferences, that's not on your shoulders. That is their job to do that. But there is that difference and that nuance. And so, again, having someone one-on-one when you're just not sure, especially at the beginning of these cases, can be really helpful to go through those kinds of nuances. All right. I don't know what number we're at right now, but can I limit how much I have to message or have conversations with my ex-partner?
Yes, you can. It just is going to go both ways. So there's lots of ways we can write into the parenting plan. There will be no more than, say, 5 talking parents messages per week, or even adding in, we're going to use talking parents. If
Yeah.
there's been lots of verbal issues or, talking parents messages that are nasty, there's a service that we also recommend called Sybil Communicator. Sometimes we try using that. So different ways that we can write in, this is how often we're going to communicate, or they can't text you unless it's an emergency and stuff like that, that we really, this is an area I feel like if we build it in, there's a lot of room to kind of put those boundaries into place in a pretty enforceable way. If he's not supposed to text you more than 3 times a day, and that's another thing I think we can kind of do is build in these if then kind of boundaries. So if so and so sends this many texts, then this happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this is a good area. If you are, you know that your partner is going to suck and they are going to not follow orders and they're going to be awful. This is an area, if you do have the if thens and you have really it spelled out and they break it, you have automatic documentation they are breaking the order. Some of these other areas are more gray and you don't have like a piece of paper that says, oh, look, they did this. And so this is a huge area. And I want you to think about how scary it feels, like just to get that notification. Like in your co-parenting app, you're like, ugh, to be able to
Ugh.
limit those like moments of your day. Amazing. So I think that's an area that we work with people a lot on because it can be like the biggest bang for your buck in that arena. I'm getting lost in my questions. Okay. Can I put restrictions on who my ex can allow to watch or drive or be around my child?
So we can request those. Sometimes they get X'd out in mediation or by a judge. And I think the biggest thing that kind of differentiates those two is when you have evidence of why you're asking for this. So if it's, father's new girlfriend has shown up drunk multiple times to like a parenting thing, that might be more of a reason you're really wanting to put in this person does not drive my child. And I think we can also put in things that are restrictive in the sense of all drivers will have a proper car seat, they will have a safe car, winter ready car if you live in a wintry area where there's snow and stuff, and you're like, hey, I know he drives an old beater and hasn't replaced the tires in 4 years. Putting things like that in there can help. So it's not as easy as just saying, hey, I don't like dad's new girlfriend, or I don't want dad's new girlfriend to be around my kid, unless there's like reasons why. And this could go with, if there's an unsafe grandparent, if we have documentation and reasons, that's a pretty likely thing to put in there and have like justification for. If it's like, I don't like these friends of his because they trash talked me, we're probably not going to get as much bang for our buck. And again, it comes down to a lot of times safety for the kids. We're going to get a lot more areas where we can restrict things when it comes to safety than when it comes to preference.
Yeah, and this actually leads really well into our next question, because I was thinking of like, if someone gets a DUI, they no longer get to drive our child. If they lose their license, and putting things in there about, we will be made aware of, they will within 48 hours tell us of any criminal arrests or something like that. Because the next question is, can I make my ex do drug or alcohol tests for parenting time?
I wish we could all just ask for this and have it granted if we have concerns. Again, I think it's that proof piece. If your ex has DUIs, if your ex has been unsafe, you have a lot more chance of getting such restrictions or getting a certain amount of time of monitoring. I never have seen them just order it for the kid's whole life.
No.
There's a sober link device that sometimes people ask for, and I don't see them typically ordering that for more than 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
so it really,
sometimes
again,
it's shorter than that.
lot.
Sometimes it's like 90 days in that like first transition. So if substance use is a concern for you, you need to document. You need to be doing everything you can to get that documentation for your child's safety. And same thing, if you are getting a court evaluator, which this is kind of off topic, but I was just thinking about it, of if you are requesting a substance abuse evaluation for your ex-partner, they will do one on you as well.
Yes. Absolutely.
If you put in the parenting plan, parent, caregiver with child, or when child is in, caregiver's care, you will not use any substances. That will be on both sides as well. So you have to be cool with whatever that might be.
Absolutely. And I think that's also an area we can play with the wording. So if it's like, yeah, I like to drink a glass of wine in the evenings, but I don't want people who are super drunk around my child. Okay, well, we can like break that down into some writing and into some language that allows drinking, but doesn't allow drunkenness, for example.
Yeah. And if you're here in Colorado and a few other states, marijuana is a huge topic in these parenting plans as well, when you're looking at substance use. And what does that look like? It's all about how it is written down. Yep. And I'm going to stop the questions just for a second, because I'm thinking about the amount of time we spend with people when we're doing this work. And your attorney is likely not going to spend this much time with you. So then that lays, that is put on your shoulders then to create this language, or it's not put in there because the attorneys don't have the time to really specify this language. And so if you're really needing that high level of support, we have a plan for you to get that. But that's, as we're talking about these, it's like, wow, some of these things just take so much extra finesse and time.
I think too, the attorneys aren't used to working with this level of stuff. And I've seen some amazing attorneys like do such a great job on the case, and their parenting plan is like the same old basic parenting plan that they would use for anyone. And it's not that they're not a good attorney, it's just that they don't really have that specific ideas and training of what needs to go in for your ex, because it is different with all of us. And I think that's a really nice piece of ours, is not only can we help you like manage emotions around making all these decisions and like processing that, but we can also really help get the wording in and get it to your attorney, who then may lawyer it up a little bit, but they've got this groundwork to work from. And if you're doing it on your own, it's going to come out a lot better for you than if you're just kind of using the state court form.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. We have got a handful more questions. Okay. When the parenting plan is finalized, do I still have to continue documenting everything?
Unfortunately, yes, because they break the parenting plan. We can put as much wording in there as kind of if thens and all those pieces, but there likely is still going to be a time that your ex breaks the parenting plan. And if you don't have documentation around these things, then you're not going to be able to go anywhere with it within court. Judges want the facts, they want dates, times, that kind of stuff. They don't want how you feel about it, unfortunately.
Yep. And you might be able to document less or different areas based on your situation. But there still is going to be that element of documentation and also seeing like, is the plan working? That's really helpful to document like what parts of the plan are working, what parts of the plan are not working. Because that will help you further along if you do need to negotiate more changes or go back to court. All right, which goes next to my ex isn't going to follow the parenting plan. What can I do?
This is where having the if-thens built in can really be in your favor. And like Sybil was saying, this is this piece of paper. It says he will do this. If not, then this. And if you have those, it's a lot easier if you do have to go back to court to very clearly get that and then get what you want. So maybe it's, you know, he regularly shows up 15 minutes late, 20 minutes late, 30 minutes late. If we have it, if he's more than 15 minutes late, he has to bring the kid to your house or something like that. And then they don't do it. They take the kid home because you weren't at the exchange spot. You have a lot more ground to stand on to reinforce those pieces and possibly hold him in contempt. And so if they're super not going to follow it, it might not be that we can keep you out of court, but it can be that we can make it a lot easier when you do go back to court and really clearly spelled out where they're breaking the orders and it's not gray.
Yeah. And if you have the if-thens in your parenting plan, it is a court order and you struggle to communicate in your co-parenting app, copy, paste. Our parenting plan states that copy, paste, you were more than X number of minutes late, therefore, right? Like you don't have to be creative at all because it's right there for you, already written, signed by everyone.
That's
so
a
that
really
is,
good.
yes, that is so helpful to have right in your parenting plan. If it is just like really well spelled out so that literally I could just like go to Joe Schmo on the street and hand them the parenting plan, they could tell you what's supposed to happen. Then you have all this, canned responses, basically of your own canned response library based on your parenting plan and what the court order is. So that's another way it can really benefit you. All right. If he isn't paying child support, can I withhold parenting time?
Unfortunately, no.
Nope.
No. And it doesn't seem to go over well if you try to build in something of if they're this far behind on payment plans. That gets ixnayed really fast by judges. They really like to disconnect financial obligation of the parent from the parent's right to parent their child. And we live in a time, at least here in Colorado, and I feel like in most states, where it's really the parent's right to parent is very strongly emphasized.
Yeah. Yep. So I wish that there could be the only things really that I've seen that can limit parenting time. And first of all, it's not your choice. You don't get to limit the parenting time because then you can be held in contempt. But if are safety issues or they over a long period of time are not following the court order, they're not exercising their parenting time at all. Those are areas, but again, you have to go back to court or mediation or something like that And when you're talking about parenting time, it's probably not going to be mediation. It's probably going to be court. But yeah, there's not these other, they didn't pay me back for the medical expenses. That has to be done separately than parenting time, which is actually, I think, a benefit in some ways. Because if you are struggling financially, or you are in that position where you can't pay for something, or you get behind, they would be able to then withhold your parenting time too. So it's probably better, but frustrating. All right. So the final question that we have, I'm sure that there's so many more questions, but the final question we have in our top kind of 12-ish questions is, why is it so important that I always follow the parenting plan when they are not going to?
This is where I like to think of contrast. You are light, they are dark. And if you guys go into court and neither of you is following the parenting plan, it's like, oh, both of them are the problem. If you're consistent, I'm always following it, I'm doing all these right things, and you can show, and he's not, that becomes more stark, and it becomes more apparent who is the problem in that situation. And I think that's like one of the best things we have going for us when we go into court, is that ability to say, look, I do all these things, I take care of my kid in these ways, and these are my concerns over here. You don't come across the same way if you're like, well, neither of us follow it, so, but like, I really want him to follow this part. And then another piece that I know can happen is if you guys aren't following your exchange plan, like say you set it up when your kid is 2, it doesn't grow with your kid's now in high school, you guys haven't changed your parenting plan, but you've started doing every 1 week on, 1 week off. And then say your ex decided, well, I'm going to go to Florida for 3 weeks. During your parenting time, I'm going to take the kid. You are not going to be able to call the police and have them get your kid back, because neither of you are following the parenting plan. If you guys follow the parenting plan very specifically, that becomes kidnapping. And so
that
there's
has very stark
really
consequences
there. Yeah. So it's like to protect yourself, and it's also to show that you are being responsible, that it's not just a these guys are both chaotic messes kind of problem, which is how I think it can really get painted quite often if we can't present in that kind of calm, collected, empowered space, and we're in that kind of panic space. They see us both as being the problem.
Yeah. And that's the goal, right, of your ex-partner, is to make you, right, fling poo so that it looks like you are part of the problem, even if you're not. And so we're just not going to give them any reason, any areas where that poo can stick to the wall. Yep. So you probably have 100 more questions. I know we had a ton of questions at the webinar, and we probably couldn't even get to all of those. We're working on getting some of those answers for you in some of these follow-up emails. If you still feel like, oh my gosh, I need help, that is when you reach out to us. So in the email where this video is there for you, you guys can watch this video any point that you want to rewatch the video. You can watch the replay as many times as you want to watch the replay of the webinar. The link below in the email will get you to our parenting plan prep program. We really want to set you up for success. And so if you really are even just wondering, go ahead, reach out to us, ask as many questions as you need to about that. We just have really seen this is the area that there is not a lot of support in. And this is literally the area that we could prevent so much of the post-separation abusey stuff. And it's just not being done. And so if you would like that help, just reach out and we will get y'all set up. So Sabrina, thank you for answering all these questions. And I'm sure you get 100 more questions when you're doing this with our members. So far our members have done it. But we are now opening it up to the wider public so that really anyone that needs the support can do it, even if they're not a part of the Rising Beyond community. Yeah, any final thoughts or words?
I'm here to help. I think we've got a great program. I feel like I've done a lot of this now. I've got some really good ideas and happy to help out and be a further resource for you guys.
Yeah, yep. We've seen what language works, what's not working, and we want to give you as much support as possible. Again, click the link below in this email to register if you already know. And if not, reach out info@risingbeyondpc.com and we will get your questions answered.